Imagine yourself living in an underground bunker in the midst of nuclear war. Life up top is impossible, and the war is fought with robots. That's where the people of Philip K. Dick's The Defenders find themselves. It's been 8 years since the start of a brutal nuclear war between Russia and the United States. 3 years after it began, humans were forced underground while robots called leadys do all the fighting. Don Taylor, an American war planner, is gloating about a bombing in Moscow to his wife. Moss, Taylor's superior, calls him up to second stage near the surface for important news. A very interesting discovery had recently been made, and it didn't factor into any of their intelligence. Their only method for collecting information about the surface is from surveillance footage gathered by the leadys. And from all of the footage, the surface is a nightmarish hellscape unsuitable for life. War has destroyed everything from the past, and all that remains are the weapons of warring nations. They bring a lady in to give a report before it's decontaminated, and it gives the standard report of the war continuing and the surface being inhospitable for life. Moss excuses the lady, but before it leaves, he asks it to inspect a piece of metal. When it examines the metal, the lady shuts down. Researchers then check the lady for radiation and determine that it's cold. How could it possibly have no radiation exposure if it's been on the surface? Moss tells Taylor that this is the second lady to come back cold that they know of, and they're organizing a party to go to the surface. They want Taylor to go along with the party. On the day they plan to go, Taylor wakes up to find a new attack has been reported. The Soviets have launched a massive counterattack with new weapons and tanks. When he asks Moss about the status of the project to explore the surface, he finds that it's still planned. Moss argues that the Russian attack was faked. The scouting party makes it to the entrance, and leadys try to stop them. They remind the team how dangerous it is up there, but they are undeterred. The leadys block the door, but soldiers open fire, destroying leadys. Realizing that the leadys aren't capable of fighting back, the team decides to stop fighting and force them to open the door. Reluctantly, they move out of the way and let them pass. Outside, they find a lush, untouched land with trees and wild animals. The leadys had been lying about everything. A few months after humans left the surface, the war stopped on all sides. Down below, everyone is engulfed in an imaginary war, and up top the robots are living in peace and rebuilding from the messes of the past. They had come to the realization that fighting a war was pointless, and the best thing to do is rebuild so that future generations unconcerned with the war could live in peace. They've been creating false images of the war for surveillance footage and building model cities for miniature versions of remote-controlled robots to patrol. Most factories underground are designed around building advanced weapons for the war, but the leadys have been melting them down for metal. At the realization that both the US and the Soviets had been tricked, members of the team want to go back to the base and launch a surprise attack against Russia. The leadys, however, had prepared for that and destroyed the entrance to the undersurface. They tell the team that they won't be able to get back anytime soon, and their best bet is to hand over their weapons. They then let them know that the Russian team had already given up their weapons when they came to the surface. Just then, a group of Russians march up, and the leader of the leadys reminds the US team that they are unarmed. He tells them that it's their responsibility to begin peace talks. The American response is that they don't have the authority to speak for an entire nation. But the lady clarifies, "We do not mean diplomatic discussions. There will be no more. The working out of daily problems of existence will teach you how to get along in the same world. It will not be easy, but it will be done." Both sides make threats, and the lady reminds them that their heroism will go unnoticed, and their only hope is to work together to survive. The Russians then tell them of their troubles with surviving on the surface, and the Americans laugh and agree to help. It seems they both have a lot to learn. As for us, what do we have to learn from this story? Published in 1953, The Defenders explores certain themes that became less common in Dick's later works. For example, the defense of the noble lie. Often in fiction, the noble lie is used by social elites to maintain order, but Dick often argued that lies and false realities could be seen in a positive way. The noble lie could be seen as a simple tool for good or evil. Nobody likes being lied to, but in a world where the lie protects everyone and ensures the future, it's difficult to see it as a bad thing. The ladies all lie about the conditions of the surface because it's the only way to defend the humans from themselves. They recognize that it's human instinct to fight, but time would make them more peaceful. However, the core meaning of the story seems to come from the ending. The war couldn't end through diplomacy. After all, the war started with diplomacy. The only way to end the war was if the people learned to work together on an individual level. The organization of the government sterilizes people from the individual realities and suffering of war. At the beginning, Taylor is gloating about the destruction of Moscow as a well-organized and orchestrated event. But his wife is thinking about the horrifying sights they witnessed before going undersurface, suggesting that it isn't so easy to focus on the horrors of war on an individual scale while planning large-scale events. The unique meaning of this story that doesn't get repeated in many more stories is that diplomacy is limited and flawed. People living in the same nation don't need diplomatic intermediaries to get along, because they've learned to work and live together. I think it's funny that this story is basically the opposite of The Terminator. The world was destroyed by humans but recovered by robots that are trying to help humans instead of fight them. The title is even opposite. I really like reading this story much like all of his work, but I feel like I'd be missing an opportunity if I didn't point out certain opinions that I had about the flaws in his understanding of human behavior. He is right that learning to work together is what brings peace. However, this is usually done by trade. Trade is usually what keeps countries from being contentious. But really, the main issue that I have is that the ladies refer to the human instinct to fight as a phase. But it isn't really. It is true that humans are becoming more civilized over time and less eager for war, but competition is a core part of human nature. Humans need an enemy that they can strive against. Many philosophers argue that war is a never-ending component of the human condition. I thought it was great that the ladies created these model cities for the humans to take out their aggression, so they could actually see the results and feel like they were taking part in a war. But they have no plans to create false wars after the humans make it back to the surface. Aside from my personal opinions, I still think it's a great little story, and the reveal of the robots tricking the humans is very funny. I really suggest you find this story. It's public domain, so you can find it anywhere. LibriVox has an audiobook, and Project Gutenberg has it in many formats. Even though I've already given a summary, I could never do justice to such a great story or a great writer. So find it and listen. Hell, the Wikipedia page even has the full LibriVox recording, and it's only like 30 minutes. So find the story, listen, and if you have some observations or disagreements with my observations, share them in the comments section.